is because sponge rub really creates the most frizz when it comes down to it. And sponge rub actually creates the most maintenance needed in order to continue that process. So for instance, this hair right here is at the perfect length for doing sponge rub. It's about 2 to 3 inches. Now it's a very ideal length. I wouldn't recommend doing sponge rub anywhere over 3 inches. And the reason being is because it doesn't allow the hair to actually get into the sponge in order to create the sections. If you've ever noticed the sponge, it has a certain type of thickness, which is about, honestly, 2 inches at most. So the hair goes into those holes in the sponge, which creates the sections from you going either counterclockwise or clockwise. Now, I would recommend you to go in the direction of your actual curls themselves, and that's something you have to find out on your own. Find out which way your curls go, if they go clockwise or counterclockwise. But with the theory of him starting out with sponge rub or towel rub, this is what you're most likely going to get out of it. You can see how the left side of his head is actually a little bit more developed than the right side of his head. And this typically happens when doing the sponge rub method. Now, I'm not sure if it's because some of your curls go counterclockwise and some of the other ones go clockwise, but this tends to always happen with sponge rub, is that one side of the head develops a little bit better than the other side. And let's be honest, this really happens with any set of dreadlocks. In the beginning stage, there's typically a side that develops a little bit quicker. And it can come from multiple things. Just like how I mentioned earlier, it might even be that some of your curls go clockwise and some other ones go counterclockwise. But another real reason is that sometimes you typically sleep mostly on one side of the head than the other. Because when dreadlocks get a lot of tension and traction, they develop a lot quicker. It's just like putting in more maintenance. The more maintenance you put into the dreadlocks, the quicker they're going to develop. So when it comes to laying down, your head creates tension and traction on that hair, which then allows it to lock up quicker and mature a lot faster. So those are a couple reasons. Another reason is that one side might be developed more than the other because of your more dominant hand. If you're right-handed, typically the right side of your head is more developed than the left side. If you're left-handed, then vice versa. But let's go ahead and skip forward a little bit to when his hair is more developed. And at this point, this all looks like finger coils. Now, of course, they're not completely developed into finger coils, because they would hang down a lot more and they would most likely be all the way down to the root. But there's other ways of doing this. This would actually also be considered a twist lock, which we typically don't see twist locks unless it's on a very tight curl pattern, which with him, it looks like his hair type is about a 4A. And twist locks actually work a little bit better with a 4C hair type. A twist lock is essentially you twisting the hair and it locking in that position. Now, obviously it's not a complete dreadlock and it's not fully mature, but your hair is at a point to where it will stay in that position if you move it in that position. Now, a very easy way of doing this is just to constantly twist that hair. Now, this doesn't require any gel or any product. It's just you simply grabbing a section of hair and twisting it. Now, of course, there's no defined section while doing this, but believe it or not, this actually speeds up the process quite a bit. Even if you're already in dreadlocks and you've had your dreadlocks for a little bit of time, say you've had them for a couple months or even a couple years, if you are to just coil your hair up using your fingers or twist them and constantly be kind of just playing with them, if you could put it that way, they will lock up a lot quicker, and that action alone will pull in a lot of frizz. That's honestly what I think is going on with his hair right here in this stage, and we really see that it's just very underdeveloped. It kind of looks like Blueface when he had his hair like this, and that's really all it is. It's finger coils. But the cool thing about starting out with sponge rub is it's a very loose and kind of freeform like style of dreadlocks, and that's why a lot of people call sponge rub dreadlocks freeform dreadlocks, which really they're not. But a lot of people call it that because all the sections aren't really defined and all the sections are actually different sizes. So they give a freeform-like look without being freeform. And I feel like that's the same thing which leads you on to doing the finger coils. Is you're not really defining the look, you're just keeping that section until it fully matures. And like you guys have heard me over and over again, is dreadlocks are essentially you holding a section long enough until it becomes an actual dreadlock. So as long as you hold that section, whether it's with twisting with gel, using rubber bands, or using the crochet needle, or whatever you choose, it doesn't matter what you choose, as long as you hold that section, it will eventually lock up in that section and become a dreadlock. Now we're starting to see his dreadlocks become more mature in this photo. We see that one hanging down on his forehead, but overall you can still see through a lot of his dreadlocks, and that just goes to show that these aren't nowhere near being fully mature. And I know he's had fully mature dreadlocks before, but as far as this set right here, he's really going through, I would say, the budding stage, which is the second stage of the locking process. And I'll go ahead and take you guys through the 3 stages. First, you have the initial locking, which is you choosing a method. In this case, he started out with sponge rub. And then you go into the budding stage or the locking process, or a lot of people like to call it the ugly stage. And that's really where he's at right now. And I don't like to call it the ugly stage because I don't think, you should call your hair ugly or anything like that. I think it's just a locking process. And that's the second stage, which is really the budding stage. This is where the hair expands and contracts, which then allows the hair to bud up and then lock up, which then brings you into the third stage, which is the actual mature stage, which from my experience and seeing other people's dreadlocks as well, is about a year to fully mature your dreadlocks. And this is regardless of the actual method you choose. Even if you started with instant locking, it still takes about a year for the hair to fully mature into being dreadlocks. But overall, it's really cool to see where his dreadlocks are going, and I'm really interested to see how they're going to turn out. And I mean, it's really simple how he got them. He does have a hair type of about 4A. It looks like he has a high top fade, and obviously he has a tapered hairline, which looks very clean. And I'm 100% sure he started out with sponge rub, and now he's just keeping these sections with his fingers. And honestly, he doesn't have to use any products, although you could use locking gel